Let's say we have a picture of a function. The red parabola here is a function because there are never any places where there's 2 points, one right above each other. So look through this parabola, look along its length. There's never any place where there's 2 points, one on top of another. Another way of saying this is if you take a vertical line and pass it through, it always hits at most 1 point. It never hits at more than 1 point. So let's get rid of those vertical lines because I don't want to look at them. So now let's say this function has a name f, and furthermore, let's say it takes in values of x, and eventually I'm going to tell you what the function is. But before I do that, let's try to use the picture, the graph of the function, to find out what the output is when you input x equals 1. Well, the x numbers are on this x-axis, and x equals 1 is right here. And if we go downwards till we hit the red graph, it looks like when x is 1, the height, which we're used to calling y, but now is we're using the y-axis for values of output. So input is, generally speaking, the x-axis, and output now for functions is the y-axis. So when you input an x number of 1, it seems like the output is -2. Another kind of question is, if you have a picture of a function, what can you put into the function to get a specific output? Like, what can you put into the function to get an output of 1? Notice this is a different question than the previous question. Here we input 1 and we wanted to see what the output or height or y value of the function would be. Here we want a height of 1 to be the answer. The question is, what x number gives you a height of 1? Well, these are all the points on the xy axis that have a height of 1. And you can see 2 of them are on the function, and it looks like when x is 2, you get a height of 1. So x could equal 2, but it also looks like when x is -2, you get a height of 1. And so these input values into our function, x equals 2, x equals -2, give us heights of 1. Now I'm going to erase some of this. What is this function? Well, it's a parabola, and since I built it, I know how I built it. Now if we go back to these same exact 2 problems, what is the output when the input is 1? We now have a different way of doing that. We can simply put in a 1 for the input x. And that's 1 minus 3, and that's -2, just like we found before. If we want to answer this sort of backwards question, we could put that x squared minus 3, that's the output of this function, needs to be 1, and we could solve by adding 3 to both sides. And then taking the square root of both sides. Or we could set this equal to 0 and factor. And we would get -2 or 2 as solutions. So there's a whole lot of things you can do with a picture of a function that if we had some algebra skills and some knowledge of what the function was algebraically, we could answer the same questions.